Stephanie White's style of coaching is not for Caitlin Clark.
That there's a bit of a divide between the way that they see the game and the way that they think the Indiana Fever should play.
Possibly try to sabotage the greatest asset the league has ever gotten.
Okay, so Stephanie White just got fired, and honestly, it's about time. This is a huge deal. She's officially out after that disastrous meltdown against the Valkyries on July 10th. Her strategy was just bizarre, and it totally sabotaged Caitlin Clark yet again. The Fever looked completely lost out there. Clark was basically sidelined from everything she's good at, and fans had simply seen enough. This isn't just some random firing. This is the direct fallout from a coach who just totally mismanaged the biggest star the WNBA has.
Caitlin Clark's greatest asset, which is the creator and instigator of offense.
Remember July 10th?
Man, the Indiana Fever just got absolutely embarrassed at home by the Golden State Valkyries. It was a 91-72 beatdown, right? But here's the thing. It wasn't just a bad game. It was like a public unraveling of the team. And right in the middle of all that chaos, Caitlin Clark, she was back on the court. But honestly, she was barely recognizable out there. It really looked like Stephanie White's doing.
White has spaded Caitlin Clark, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Coach Stephanie White started Ari McDonald next to Caitlin Clark against the Valkyries, which again, she explained by saying it helps to take the burden off of Caitlin.
She seriously looked like someone whose entire game had just been stripped away. There were no pick and rolls, no transition attacks, and absolutely no floor command for her. Instead, Clark was just shoved off the ball, basically stuck watching Ari McDonald run the offense while she camped in the corner looking like a forgotten role player. And get this, the Fever's only reliable weapon, that amazing Clark-Boston two-woman game, it just vanished without a trace.
Fans online has been threatening to quit watching the Indiana Fever basketball. Fans is threatening to quit going to the games. And if this was to happen,
Fever fans, they weren't just angry, they were totally stunned. Everyone was thinking, what is this lineup? Caitlin Clark at small forward, nobody could believe what they were seeing on the court. And then, when Clark finished with just 8 points in her highly anticipated return, the internet just exploded. Not because Clark played badly, but because it seriously looked like she was intentionally neutralized out there.
Stephanie White under fire by Fever fans, she blasted her team after the squad's loss to the Golden State Valkyries.
Because I felt like there was a lack of competitive fire. With the exception of about 2 5-minute spurts, our attention to detail was poor.
And then in the post-game press conference, Stephanie White just took the mic and, man, she poured gasoline all over the flames. She didn't take even a single ounce of responsibility. Instead, she just blamed the players. She completely slammed the team for undisciplined play, for a lack of effort, and for poor attention to detail. She even said they lacked competitive fire. But you know what? Never once did she explain why her rotations made absolutely no sense, or why Clark was being so misused, or why the entire game plan just fell apart the second they tipped off.
Our attention to detail, undisciplined. I felt like our energy and our competitive fire was not there, and that's disappointing.
Listen, this wasn't just tone deaf. It truly felt deliberate. White acted like she had no part in any of the chaos. But the fans, they weren't fooled for a second. Everyone saw it happening right in front of them. This was entirely on the coaching, and that's when all those whispers started turning into shouting. People were saying it loud and clear. Stephanie White is sabotaging Caitlin Clark.
Concern, defensively, just lots of movement, lots of lateral movement. I thought she looked good at times, and I think that's just building consistency and building her endurance and all of that. So I was pleased.
So, that's an interesting comment.
And let's be honest about something. This whole situation isn't new at all. The tension between Clark and White has been brewing for weeks, actually. It goes all the way back to May 24th after a close loss to the Liberty. Clark said it on record, "I'm best with the ball in my hands. That's when I'm most effective." Then, just a few minutes later, White totally contradicted her. She praised Clark's cutting and screening, but not her ball handling. That philosophical split, It never went away. If anything, it's only gotten louder and uglier.
Immediately afterwards, in regards to basically what went wrong and why, the Fever fell so flat.
White keeps insisting that playing Clark off the ball just gives the team different looks. She even went as far as to compare it to how the Mavericks moved the ball better without Luka Doncic on the floor. Yeah, Luka, a generational talent, just like Clark, and the engine of his entire team. So, when White brings that up, it's really hard not to hear the actual message between the lines there. It sounds like she's saying the team plays better without Caitlin dominating the ball.
We've seen these glimpses where I do believe the Fever at their best can still be what I've talked about and what I've discussed. But
that's not just some strategy, right? That's a whole belief system. And it flies directly in the face of absolutely everything Clark has ever done. Think about it. At Iowa, early in the WNBA, and right there in the national spotlight, she's not just some spot-up shooter. She's not a decoy. She's a playmaker, a true floor general, a once-in-a-lifetime engine who can drop 30 points and dish out 12 assists without even breaking a sweat.
Poof, the one thing that was in existence that actually worked, that felt like a little bit of something offensive that worked, gone.
So, when Stephanie White started Erie McDonald at point guard against the Valkyries, it felt like the final insult. And the results? They were absolutely disastrous. The offense was completely broken. Clark just looked lost out there. The chemistry with Boston, it totally evaporated. And somehow, the only person who didn't seem to notice any of this was the coach herself.
The fandom is in pure crash out mode. Somebody expose.
The fans, though, they weren't having any of it. Experts are out here calling her system a point-forward mess and accusing her of totally neutering Clark's entire game. But here's the big question everyone's asking. Why is Clark being used like some random role player? And why is the only offensive set that actually worked, that awesome Clark-Boston pick and roll, completely gone?
Does Stephanie White have an agenda? Her coaching style is influenced by her NC2A championship coach, Carolyn Peck.
And then there's this whole Carolyn Peck connection. White was actually mentored by Peck, who just days ago said on ESPN that the Fever were better without Clark. That's not just a hot take, that's a huge red flag. White even followed Peck at Vanderbilt, where she basically drove every top player into the transfer portal. So now it all feels like it's coming full circle, right? The same pattern of losing locker rooms and mismanaging elite talent. Whether you think there was some hidden agenda or just plain incompetence, one thing is crystal clear: something had to give. And it finally did. Stephanie White is out. The Indiana Fever front office made the only move they could, because this wasn't just about one bad game. This was about a pattern of failure, a complete mismatch between coach and star, and a team that was totally circling the drain with the most valuable player the league has seen in decades.
There is a plot to destroy Caitlin Clark, and Stephanie White and the Indiana Fever might be in on it.
Let's just look at the facts here. The Fever were 5-14 before that Valkyries loss on July 10th. That defeat made them 5-15 after a humiliating 19-point beatdown, and against an expansion team that didn't even exist last season, mind you. That was Caitlin Clark's highly anticipated return game, and instead of coming back to a rhythm and a system that actually played to her strengths, she was just shoved into this clunky, off-ball role next to Erie McDonald, who wasn't even in the WNBA like 3 weeks ago. That's not just poor coaching, that's malpractice. Seriously.
Stephanie White is an idiot, should be fired. This woman played Ari McDonald 18 minutes in the first half. 3 weeks ago, Ari McDonald wasn't on a WNBA roster.
Plus, Stephanie White's track record doesn't exactly inspire much confidence, either. During her time at Vanderbilt, she pretty much ran that program right into the ground, going 40, and get this, multiple star players ended up transferring out, including an all-SEC forward and their top scorer. Why did all these players leave? Because they didn't feel empowered, because they were misused, and really, because White just couldn't manage elite talent.
The Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston deadly connection, pick and roll, two-man game connection that has worked.
Now fast forward to the WNBA, and she's doing it all over again. Caitlin Clark, the #1 overall pick, leading all rookies in scoring and assists. She's the league's top jersey seller, the only reason the Fever are selling out arenas coast to coast. And Stephanie White, she completely neutered her. She took away that amazing pick and roll with Aaliyah Boston, made her stand in the corner, and removed the very thing that makes her generational. The ball in her hands, the freedom to create.
Caitlin Clark has a horrible game in her return. The whole team is horrible.
Look, that whole situation was just horrible. That's not just bad strategy. That's straight up sabotage. Whether it was intentional or just pure stubbornness, the outcome was exactly the same. The Fever were getting worse, not better. In the face of the league, Caitlin Clark just looked miserable. So the front office finally had to step in. Because when your coach doesn't know how to handle the future of your franchise, the most valuable asset in your entire league, you simply don't wait. You pull the plug, and they did it. Caitlin Clark might not be out here throwing chairs or blasting coaches on Instagram Live, but she's saying plenty. And if you've really been paying attention, it sounds a whole lot like a cry for help.
I think we need to do a better job of getting the ball in transition, whether somebody's there or not. I think there's a fine balance of playing me off the ball and also getting the ball in my hands. That's when I'm the best in transition. Everybody knows that. I'm very open about that.
She said it multiple times now, in different ways and with different tones, but it always comes back to that one key line: that's when I'm best with the ball in my hands.
You have to consider the possibility that the Indiana Fever are in on the plot to destroy Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark is just not thriving in this system, plain and simple. She's like a Ferrari parked in a garage, being told to play bumper cars. This woman led all of college basketball in both assists and points. And now she's out here watching Aari McDonald, who was unemployed just a month ago, run the offense like it's her team.
I thought we started really well. I thought we were competitive. I thought we played with energy in the first 5 minutes. And then, when they kind of went on their first run, it kind of deflated us a little bit, which I'm not really sure why. But the offense, I think, for us, it starts on defense.
And when Clark was asked post-game, after that Valkyries disaster, where the Fever got totally steamrolled by an expansion team, she didn't explode. No diva behavior, just this thoughtful disappointment. She said the team started strong, had energy early, and then the run happened, and they deflated. Let's pause on that for a second. We deflated. That's not normal locker room talk, is it? That's a nice way of saying we lost our soul out there.
Struggled, scouting report-wise, we struggled personnel, we struggled to do what the coaches asked of us, and then, overall, we just played with more energy and effort, and, those are the things that just can't happen.
She admitted the defense was sloppy, said the team didn't follow the scouting report, and openly took responsibility, saying nobody played well today. But you could just hear it in her tone, right? And in her body language, something just wasn't right at all. And now, we're really starting to see what was going on beneath the surface. A brewing philosophical rift between Clark and head coach Stephanie White.
You see the Mavs just play differently without Luka on the floor. When he's not on that floor, the ball is moving. It's popping. Multiple players getting involved in the action. So it does give you a little insight into how Coach White thinks at times.
But Coach Stephanie White clearly had other ideas. She even brought up Luka Doncic. Yes, Luka, saying how the Mavs actually move the ball better without him on the floor. That wasn't just some random thought, That was a real window into how she truly sees Caitlin Clark. Think about it. Most people compare Clark to Steph Curry, that elite shooter with unlimited range. But truthfully, she's more like a LeBron-Luka hybrid. She's a heliocentric offensive weapon who bends the defense with her gravity and amazing playmaking. She is the system, not just a piece of one. So when White starts building a scheme that treats Clark like a simple 3-and-D wing, it's not just confusing, it's pretty much insulting.
Caitlin Clark should always be the instigator of offense on this team. The distributor and instigator of offense, whether it is her scoring or her distributing the ball out in the way that we know she can.
Caitlin Clark is truly the identity of this team. And it really feels like Stephanie White was trying to reshape that identity into something it's not, like something balanced, something team first, something where Clark just blends into the system rather than being the entire system herself.
We're talking about a woman that obviously has court vision in the same way that some of the greatest distributors in the history of basketball ever have.
But look, the WNBA didn't explode in popularity this year because people wanted to watch the Fever share the ball 12 passes deep, like the 2014 Spurs, right? No, they showed up to watch Clark create pure magic, and when that magic disappears, people definitely notice. They start asking some really hard questions. And right now, the answers are just getting harder and harder to swallow.
White is to blame. Stephanie White will go down as the coach that ruined Caitlin Clark fan base.
Whether you believe all that or not, it's absolutely undeniable that something just had to give, and it finally did. Stephanie White is out. Fired. Done. The Fever literally had no choice. The friction had become a huge distraction. The losses were too ugly, and the fan base was just furious. But more importantly, Clark is the franchise now. She's not just a player, she's the entire future of the WNBA. And if your coach can't figure out how to unleash your biggest star, then it's that coach who simply has to go.
It ought to be an NBA coach or former NBA coach, somebody that does not have any agenda.
So, what happens now for the Indiana Fever? Without Stephanie White on the sideline, the franchise is definitely at a crossroads. But it's also a massive opportunity. This isn't just about finding a new coach anymore. It's about completely rebuilding the entire identity of this team and doing it around Caitlin Clark. No more philosophical tug-of-war. No more trying to force her into a system that just never fit. The next hire has to be someone who truly understands star power. Someone who knows how to just let Clark cook. You're already hearing names like Mark Jackson and Bill Laimbeer being floated around. Former NBA minds with no agenda, just a winning mentality.
But you're going to have to make sure that Caitlin Clark is able to...
And honestly, this whole change could really unlock everything. Clark's potential for 25 points and 12 assists, that's very real. That amazing Boston Clark pick and roll is ready to be unleashed again. Most importantly, with the right leadership, this young Fever roster could totally go from losing a lot to being truly lethal. The WNBA's most watched team just cleared the runway. Now, it's time for them to fly. This isn't just a firing, it's a warning, a huge turning point, and a clear signal to every coach, exec, and league official out there: adapt to the Caitlin Clark era or get left behind.